everyone and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we are answering one of the questions that I get asked a lot, probably one of the most commonly asked questions, which is how long should I talk to someone over text before we go on a date? How long should I entertain this person that seemingly seems to be wanting to waste my time before I move on to somebody else? What is the optimal amount of time that I should be chatting to someone? So today I've got a few opinions, and also I'm going to share with you what we recommend for our matchmaking clients and explain why we recommend what we recommend. But I am also going to potentially confuse you by telling you my perceptions of texting and how I used to be, because I think that's really useful for anyone who isn't a texter. Because hands up, I absolutely love a good text messaging session. But let's discuss this today and leave your thoughts and comments in the comments box below, because I do think that everyone is different. I think it's more important to suss out where the two of you are at than subscribe to any particular method or particular technique or strategy. So what works for you might not work for the next person, and I recommend that you experiment with this one. So let's talk about what Helen Fisher says here. This book is Aziz Ansari's Modern Romance. I'm not quite sure if that's how you say his name, but we're going to go with that. So Helen Fisher says that there's only one way to determine whether you have a future with a person: meeting them face to face. Nothing else can give you a sense of what a person is actually like, nor whether you two will spark. So that's Helen Fisher. She's basically saying, in a roundabout way, don't spend too long texting, meet in person, because it's the only way to actually work it out. She also says that the brain is the best algorithm and that apps cannot really do it for you, and that you're better off meeting someone than messing around texting all day long. Laurie Davis, who is the author of Love at First Click and an online dating consultant, advises her clients to exchange a maximum of 6 messages before meeting offline. This should provide enough information to let them know whether they'd have any possible interest in dating the person. Everything after that is usually just postponing the inevitable. So that's what those two people think. Matchmakers, what do matchmakers think? So I'm only going to speak for the company that I work for, which is Little Black Book. We're a London-based matchmaking service, and what we do is we vet people on behalf of other people, and we do all the matching. So we don't use an algorithm. We are working with key life values and what people have said that they want, combined with the personality type of those two people, and then we are matching them together. So we've met both sides of the dating equation and decided that we think that they're a good match. So our advice is that you don't really text at all. You only text to make the arrangement to meet. So we try to cut out the texting process, because sometimes, not always, but sometimes we use texting as a way to, buy ourselves a bit of time, to entertain ourselves, to vet someone out. And things can go quite wrong when it comes to texting. Some of us are not as good as other people at conveying the tone of what we're saying over text, and some of us just don't really flourish in written word. And who are we to say that those people don't deserve love? So those are what the experts say. What do I say as a human being? Well, it's a bit confusing, because when I was single, there is absolutely not a chance that you would get me on a date in 6 text messages. To do that, it would be terrifying, and that's just it. I think that when people are postponing a bit, it's fear that gets in the way, and certainly for women, a lot of us want to suss out ahead of time, is this guy, a psychopath? Maybe not to that level, but is he creepy? Is he weird? I need to feel like I've had a conversation with him and get comfortable. I want to build rapport over text messaging. And if someone can't build rapport over text messaging, then therefore it means that they might not be very great in person. And it would always have been part of my vetting process to have a good chat over text. Texting was extremely important to me at that time. However, having worked as a matchmaker, I would say that People who are bad over emails and don't come across well are not necessarily bad in person. So, and by bad I just mean, I'm just gonna say boring. Like, I have people who are very like unwarm over email and their personality in real life is very different. I perhaps wouldn't have put those two thoughts together if I hadn't met so many people that I've met. And because I meet people every single week and I'm vetting people every single week, I can see how some people just don't come across great on texts or emails and they need to be met, which is why we are trying to cut down the text messaging and get people to meet. The other thing that I've discovered from being in a long-term relationship is that you don't text each other anymore. Like, it's all fun and games when you're in the seduction process, and I do agree that texting, I love it, it can be really fun, but when you live in the same house as each other, you're probably just gonna text like, where are you, when they're out, and can you get something? Do you need anything from Waitrose? What time are you home? You know, these are the sorts of logistical conversations that you end up having. Like, you don't have these conversations over text anymore. So texting becomes factual when you're in a long-term relationship, for me anyway, unless he goes away, and then we will text more, but certainly not the same level as when we first got together. So is texting that important? So what happens if someone is too quick? What is too quick? So really, too quick, in my opinion, and a lot of experts will say this, is when you approach with a date. So the very first message, or the very first two messages, is, hi, nice to meet you, do you want to go for coffee next Wednesday? It's like, whoa. What that demonstrates perhaps is that you haven't decided to vet the other person on any level. You're asking a lot of people out maybe, like, why is he asking me out? Slow down a little bit, because it doesn't demonstrate your high value if you ask someone out very, very easily. It's better for yourself and for them to have a bit of a conversation so that you can work out whether you have anything in common. So not immediately. If you are someone who wants to move quite quickly and you're aware that you move quite quickly and you want to do the 6 messages, I would suggest that you acknowledge that. So you might say, I know that I'm moving quite quickly, but I really liked your profile and I feel that meeting in person would be a really fun thing to do. You could find something specific on their profile as a reason to why you're more interested in this person than maybe the next, so that you don't look too low value when you're going in with your offer. You can also say, I'm aware that this might be too quick for you, but I just wanted to ask, how do you feel about coming to this gig I'm going to on Friday? I've got a spare ticket, or whatever it is. If you want to go somewhere with someone and you're drawn to them specifically, just make sure that you acknowledge that you're being quick and you're specific about it, so it doesn't look like you've just asked everyone else as well. It's also good, if you're someone who doesn't like texting, to drop it in there relatively early on, so that that person knows this person's not really a texting type, and then they can do with that information what they wish. Because sometimes people think, oh, they're hardly messaging me and therefore they're not interested. If someone brings it up as an issue, it's good for you to at that point reassure them that you're actually quite interested in them and that you're just not really a texter, and then together you can hopefully reach some sort of compromise where you're either texting a bit more or you're having conversations over like a phone call more often or something like that. So it's important that you're compatible on how you're communicating and that you're able to demonstrate and show where you're at with that relatively early on. So what is too long? Now for me, I think if you've chatted to someone quite regularly over the period of like a week, at that point you should be trying to escalate it into an actual date. You can do it quicker than that. You can do your 6 messages. I'm not saying don't do that, but certainly once you've been talking to someone for a week, they might start to think, when are they going to ask me out? If you're the person who's sat there thinking, when is this person going to ask me out? I would suggest considering being that person that prompts it to happen. You can prompt someone into asking you out in a really cheeky, flirtatious way. How, you know, you might ask something like, so what's your favorite first date? And they might say, and then you might say, oh, sounds like a good one. So when are we going? You know, like a little bit cheeky, that's super direct. Or you might say something like, this sounds wonderful. I'd be up for doing that with you sometimes, maybe, if you'd ask, and then do like a little cheeky face or, you know, a cute emoji. And it's really direct, it's really playful. And if it goes wrong, it goes wrong, doesn't it? Like we move on, it's not that big a deal. So there'll be a lot of you out there thinking like, oh, how do I keep someone away for a little bit longer and postpone this situation of a date just because I'm not comfortable yet and I want to chat over text a bit. So it's quite good to explain your stance in a way that is not about them. So you might say something like, thank you so much for asking me out on a date. I really appreciate the offer. However, I typically move slightly slower than this. Probably in a week's time, my opinion will be different if we're getting on well over text. You are dangling the carrot, as I love to say. So you're putting this amount of time on it. So don't put an amount of time on it if it's not the truth. You might also want to reassure that person that you're not wasting their time. I know that I might look like one of those people who is not interested in meeting up. Promise I don't want just a pen pal. I would like to chat a little bit more. You can also, before we meet, you can also put in a counter offer. So you could say something like, I think going for a drink sounds awesome. However, I do pace things quite slowly myself, and I'd be really comfortable with jumping on a phone call first. So you're giving them a rejection, but it's not a true rejection. It's, I'm rejecting your offer and I'm going to offer something else that suits me. Can we meet at this middle point? Because a lot of the time it's like a comfort thing. Like for me, like I used to feel, rightly or wrongly, that I needed to talk to someone a little bit to get a sense of them and to feel comfortable going on that date, because you don't know who you're going to meet online. And the more you talk to someone, the more you at least feel, rightly or wrongly, that you kind of know a bit about them. You could say something like, I don't have any intention to muck you about at all, but I'd like to move slightly slower than this. So perhaps we could go on a date after we've chatted a little bit more. And then you can maybe say, you know, after a couple more days of chatting, so that they know, like, how long is this going to be? Because a lot of the time, I think that's the fear. People are like, how long do I have to wait for? And then we forget to enjoy the process. And I do think that we should try to enjoy the process a little bit. And if you can become someone who can tolerate a little bit more texting, you might find that you actually get onto more dates, because it can be a horrible feeling to be on the receiving end of feeling like that person's just after the end goal and not enjoying the process. Like, it should be quite fun to chat to someone new and not be thinking, oh, there's another person here to waste my time. If you're in that headspace, then you're perhaps looking at dating through a little bit of a pessimistic lens. So I would absolutely love it if you could tell me how long you think you should text someone for before you go on a date. What is your strategy? Do you have a certain amount of back and forth? I've had people say that 10 is a good number. I've had people say 12 messages back and forth, or a certain amount of messages on the app, and then you want to move off the app onto WhatsApp, couple of messages there, and then you will ask. What is your go-to strategy? What works for you? Because I can always guarantee what works for one person won't work for the next person. So when I'm working with clients, I'm trying to work out what works best for them and what they can tolerate most and how they can communicate their desire to operate in this way. Thank you so much for watching today. If you've enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. If you would like some one-on-one dating coaching, you can just head on over to my website, and you can also follow me on social media at Blears. Bye-bye.